All right, today we are jumping right into a really fascinating story, one that sits at the intersection of geopolitics, energy, and, you guessed it, digital money. We're going to unpack how Iran has been using Bitcoin as a strategic tool to try and sidestep some of the most suffocating economic sanctions in the world. You know, that quote, it really hits home, doesn't it? Just try to imagine an entire national economy, all its businesses and people basically stuck in a permanent waiting room. Just waiting. Waiting for a bank payment to clear, waiting for a trading partner to finally accept the risk of doing business with you. In a world like that, the idea of instant settlement, of being able to move value from A to B without asking anyone for permission, that isn't just powerful, it's a lifeline. So that leads us to the central puzzle here. What do you do when the entire global financial system is basically designed to lock you out? Well, you don't just sit there and wait. You start looking for a completely different kind of door. And for Iran, that door looked a whole lot like Bitcoin. Now, this wasn't about some grand tech ideology. It was pure logistics, a practical solution to a massive geopolitical problem. Okay, so to really get why Bitcoin became an option, you first have to understand the sheer pressure of living under these sanctions. Traditional finance wasn't just difficult, it was a labyrinth of roadblocks and compliance traps. The incentive to find any way out was enormous. And this is probably the single most important thing to remember through all of this. For Iran, this was never about embracing the philosophy of crypto. It was way more practical. It all boiled down to one simple problem. How do you move value when every normal path is blocked, monitored, and basically booby-trapped? Bitcoin just happened to offer a potential path. So, to really visualize the choice they were facing, it helps to just picture two completely different maps of the financial world. And here they are. I mean, just look at the contrast. On the left, you've got the traditional map. It's all about borders, gatekeepers, and controlled choke points like the SWIFT network. Every single move can be watched, and more importantly, it can be blocked. But then you look at the map on the right, the Bitcoin network. It's global. It's open. No one person or country can just decide to shut it off. Now, if you're a nation that's been locked out, which map looks more appealing? It's kind of like finding an unlocked door in a building where every other door has been bolted shut. Okay, this is where the strategy gets really, really clever. This is all about alchemy, in a way. It's about converting a domestic resource that they have a ton of, energy, into a global resource they desperately need, which is money that can actually move across borders. This is the absolute core of the strategy. Some people call it a digital energy export. Think about it like this. If sanctions make it super hard to export your oil on a tanker ship, what else can you do with that energy? Well, you can keep it at home and use it to power computers that mine Bitcoin. And just like that, you've turned cheap local electricity into a totally portable, globally priced digital asset, an asset that doesn't need a tanker or a bank to go anywhere. And the process itself is surprisingly straightforward. It's basically a three-step recipe. Step 1, you start with your cheap, subsidized energy. Step 2, you plug in these power-hungry mining rigs and let them do their thing, solving complex math problems. And then, step 3, out the other side comes Bitcoin, a digital asset you can now use to pay for things you need to import. But here's the thing. Just creating Bitcoin is only the first part of the puzzle. An asset is pretty useless if you can't actually spend it. And to do that, you need an entire financial ecosystem built around it, a shadow system that can operate where the traditional banks simply can't or won't. And right at the heart of this shadow system, you'll find a very important new player. Let's call them the facilitator. You can think of these people as financial translators. They're fluent in the language of the physical world, oil shipments, invoices, bills of lading. But they're also fluent in the language of crypto, wallets, exchanges, transaction hashes. Their entire job is to bridge those two very different worlds. And let's be clear, we are not talking about some small-time back alley operation here. These facilitators are moving serious money. To give you a sense of the scale, U.S. authorities went after just one of these shadow networks, and it was linked to a jaw-dropping $600 million in transactions. This isn't just a clever workaround. It's a parallel financial system being built in real time. So what you end up with is this relentless, high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Every time enforcement agencies get a smarter new tool for tracing transactions, the evasion networks get better at covering their tracks. They split up, they reform, they constantly evolve. Each move just makes both sides more and more sophisticated. But this whole strategy isn't a free lunch. It comes with a massive cost. Actually, there are two big costs: a very steep price that's paid at home, and a much more complicated, almost bizarre international paradox that it creates. First, let's talk about the price being paid inside Iran. The sheer amount of electricity needed for all this Bitcoin mining puts an incredible strain on the country's power grid. We're talking rolling blackouts for regular citizens. And as you can imagine, that fuels a lot of public anger. A lot of suspicion that some well-connected elites are getting rich while everyone else is literally left in the dark. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? For the average person whose power just went out again, this isn't some abstract geopolitical chess move. When you're sitting in the dark, you're not wondering about the global hash rate. You're asking who's profiting off your misery. And that turns into a huge domestic political problem, fast. But the second consequence, well, this one is even wilder. It's this strange paradox, a kind of unintentional feedback loop. And get this, it actually starts in the very country that's leading the sanctions effort in the first place, the United States. Okay, so here's the paradox in a nutshell. On the one hand, you have the official US goal: financially isolate adversaries like Iran. Crystal clear. But at the exact same time, you have actions happening inside the US from regulators, from big financial markets that are making Bitcoin more and more legitimate. Do you see the contradiction? When you legitimize the escape hatch, you're unintentionally making your adversary's escape tool more valuable and more useful. And just think about the powerful signals this sends to the rest of the world. When the US approves Bitcoin ETFs, that's a giant green light to Wall Street saying, hey, this is a serious asset. Then imagine the White House talking about creating a US strategic Bitcoin reserve. Well, that sends a signal to other countries that this is a durable, sovereign-level asset. These actions act like a giant amplifier for Bitcoin's legitimacy, and that benefits every single person who holds it, no matter what their politics are. It's an echo, and there's no conspiracy needed. And so all of this leaves us with this huge, sprawling question for the future. For decades, financial power has meant controlling the plumbing, the banking system, the transfer rails. But what happens when money isn't just something that flows through the plumbing, but is also a global open source protocol that kind of exists everywhere and nowhere at once? In a world like that, what does a sanction truly even mean? It's a question that really challenges the very foundation of how we think about economic power.